Gundam.tk presents Master Grade Monkey D. Luffy. Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert184, 2Rs2Bs from gudam.tk, which is gundamreviews.net, and today, even though I'm not looking at a Gundam specifically, it is the Master Grade line Figurerise Monkey D. Luffy, and I've got a whole bunch of empty parts with plates, which means that the parts are all put together, so let's take a look at those before assembling it into that non-mobile suit. A quick note that instead of using my regular lining markers, I usually used Real Touch markers here just because the ink seems to work a little bit better, and some black Gundam markers there just to put on his eyebrows. In terms of the main body, you're going to be getting ankles, legs, waist section, chest, arms, and a head. 2 long legs there, and 2 long arms, which are going to have shoulders and fists attached, and an extra set of non-manipulators. The famous straw hat, a vest, 2 faces that you can swap off, and 2/3 of the hair there. You're also going to get a cup of mead and some meat there, and an extra attachment if you want to put it on the action base. The feet are interesting, and they're actually put together out of quite a few small parts. You've got the sandal strap up there, and this part down below is soft, and I went over that with a red Real Touch marker, whether that was the best choice or not. Anyway, you've got some points of articulation, or a point there, and for the ankles they're going to rotate ever so slightly, as well as move forward and back, so the feet are looking pretty good, although I'm not crazy about the way some of the lining looks with the black regular marker on here. Here's the leg, which is looking pretty smooth. You've just got a front and back piece which snap on here, 2 back parts, and then a front part there. You've got an ankle that goes on in a kneecap. But in terms of the mobility, you're able to stretch this part out, and even without that, you can bend it down here and you're going to get a 135. If you stretch that out, you can actually get even more, and you can just play with that to get it in the right place. And if you want to pull this part out, you can extend the leg. This is his right part. It's actually handy that they put that in there. And with the foot attached on, I think you actually have a pretty convincing looking human, cartoon, robot, plastic leg. I'm a lot less excited about these long extended legs though, just because they are just 2 big blocky pieces of plastic that you attach together. They do again label which leg this is, left and right, and these feet you have to interchange them, so you can either have them on the short legs or on here when you put them on. And stretched out, here's the difference, and if you compress this down to its normal size, if you had the foot in there, you can see that you really are getting a very comical effect. The shorts have a fair bit of mobility built into them, and I'd say in terms of looks, they're probably the best. I went with gray Real Touch marker here for the lining and then just rubbed it off lightly with a Kleenex. And again, gray down here on these white parts, which are very white until you darken them up a little bit. You've got a gold button here, and if you want to move things around, you'll notice that these parts, this part here is going to rotate, so it's not going to look bad in any position, and you can actually bend the legs all the way out. My only complaint really being is that these parts down here seem a little bit loose. For the torso, I didn't go with any lining here. If you're a better painter than I am, I'm sure you could really bring out some of the muscles here. But in terms of mobility, you're just going to have a ball joint to attach down there. This part is going to go forward and back pretty well, and off to the side ever so slightly. The neck is slightly disappointing that it's got a couple points of articulation, but it's only going to bend that much. And also, it looks like you've got this big ugly gap there in the front, which isn't going to be covered up by the head, I don't think. For the shoulders though, those are impressive. You've got these rotating balls over here, and these parts here can go forward and back, and so far they do a pretty good job of hiding any of the inner frame, quote quote. The vest is looking okay, if a little bit plain, only a few opportunities to put some lining for the buttonholes and some gold buttons there, which are at least going to stand out. It's just 2 solid pieces that you can see are just going to attach together, and it's going to flare out in the back. You can put a little bit of lining back there, but really there's not a lot of creases or anything in the front to add any detailing to. And the arms are very similar to the legs, except they've got a different kind of pull-out mechanism here. 2 front and back parts for either part there. The elbow is going to give you a bend like this, over 135 I'd say, by itself, and if you want to stretch it out, you can pull this part and this part, so unlike the legs, and bend that in for the complete 180. Similar to the way that the bottom, the ankle is capped off with a single piece, so is this. And then you're going to have this wrist, which moves around pretty well. The hand can pop off if you're not too careful, but the shoulder looks solid, and even if you bend this up, you're actually going to have most of the parts again hidden quite well. Here's the stretchy arm, and you'll notice that it's got a shoulder attached onto that, built separate, and these fists are actually built right into it. They're not a separate part. There's no moving wrist there or anything like that. And when you go to put some lining in here, again, I just went with some regular black lining, and I'm not too crazy about that. Maybe I should have gone a little further, but then again, I don't know how often I'll be using these extendo versions. Here's the extra set of hands that you're going to be getting with the open fingers there. No need for lining whatsoever, and they're going to look pretty good when you attach them on to the wrists. And in terms of silly Luffy accessories, how about these two? You're going to get one for either hand, and they actually tell you in the instructions to put the hands right on these when you construct them. The mug here is just going to be a couple parts that you put together. It does have a seal here, but the color is hardly any different from the main color. I just went with some black lining there. You could really go around and do these parts there, and some red or some brown would really bring them alive. The hand again doesn't look that great with the lining. The meat is okay. You've just got a long white bone there in the middle, and you slap two halves on it. I went with black Real Touch marker in there, which is looking okay in places, but then again, not something I intend to display too much, and you can always just choose the best side to have forward. Like SD Gundams though, that live and die on their head sculpt, I think that this kit is going to get a buy or not based on how the head is going to work. So first of all, on the inside here, you're going to have a main part of the head, and then you have two sets of hair that you can swap off with three different faces. This one being probably the most intricate, because you have two white pieces that you put in for the teeth, and you have all that red part there, which looks a little bit creepy before you put it all together. But anyway, it shows off the trademark one piece wide open mouth pretty well. I went with black marker there. This is just regular lining to get the scar done, and this is black Gundam marker, and I'm not crazy about the way it went on, but it is still better to have that than to have him have no eyebrows. But where I was pleasantly surprised is that for the eyes, even though you do get decals, the pupils, actually, the black part in the middle, is a plastic piece, which is a pleasant surprise. It's just a small black bar which attaches in behind the eyes, and it actually gives you a pretty cool and non-stickery effect. For his silly one-piece grin, again, the scar is going to look pretty good. You do have a red piece there on the inside, even though from the front, when you put the teeth in, they're just one piece. I suppose I could have put a line down the middle, but you really don't see any pink in there, so it seems like they could have gotten away with one less red piece. Still good that they went to the effort, though. I put some eyes in there, and this is lining marker, and then up here for the eyebrows, it's again Gundam marker. And I put a little bit of lining in the ears, which doesn't look too great, but anyway, the face should be fun in a few circumstances. And if you want to use this thing to its full extreme, you can take off the hair there, take off the front of the hair and the face, and when you do that, you can pop out this part, and when you attach on this hair is going to be for the hat because it's smooth on the back, which is going to work well. You can swap on this face then. This is his serious face, which again looks pretty silly until you actually put the hair on. Pop this off, pop this on here. Actually, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one. Put this one, there's also a different front part here, so you've got 5 hair parts in total. You should have the round ones there together if you want to do that upright. And then when you put that on, he's going to look very silly until you add the hat, which is just going to be one solid piece. I went with some black lining all over the place using Real Touch marker. Some places it went on a little bit thick, other places a little bit too light, but that's something you can fix up after. Here it looks pretty good on the front. There's some good little ridges there, if you want to call it, in between, which are looking okay. The front part just has some small holes, so not a lot of ink is going to stay in there. The red sticker, if I put it on perfectly, there wouldn't be any bubbles, I suppose, but there are, so I'm just going to try to keep those hidden in the back, or I'll go over that with a Q-tip. One thing that's a little disappointing is this part, it looks pretty good actually, the rope, and that's knotted at the bottom. Gray Real Touch over this to bring out some of the details, but up on the top you're going to have those white parts sticking out, which doesn't look that great. And when you put it on the head, you can see that it can support the head all by itself when it's put in there perfectly because you've got that nice line on there. If you want to change the angle that it sits at, you're able to do it a little bit, but it's not going to stay on there with any confidence. Something else you're going to be getting, this arm is going to be pretty familiar for Gundam fans for the action base. You just bend that out and you can extend it up a few places there, lock it into place. At the bottom you've got a nice clear part here. This is going to rotate around. No names or labels or anything on there, and this part, this is a special one for Luffy it looks like because you don't use the one that comes on the plate naturally. So from the build, I actually had a lot of fun putting it together. It's also really interesting to see just how different this is from a Gundam and the way that they had to think of things in a completely different way. The arms are pretty good with all those bending mechanisms, and the legs actually look pretty good. I'm disappointed with the long extended ones just because they're very, very boring when you put them together. But the face to have 2 sets of hair and 3 faces, and all 3 of the faces looking pretty good with just a little bit of marker effort on your part. I'm pretty pleased with the way this whole thing is looking so far, but it matters not how the parts are until it's all put together. So stay tuned for the next part where I'll put this mobile suit / anime character together, and stay tuned for that in the final verdict. Thanks for watching everybody, Robert184. You know, I clearly look like a better piece of merchandise. But with me, you get the satisfaction of putting it together yourself.